Hi, we're Quaint and Curious Volumes. My name is James. It's July of 2025, and a lot of booktubers are going to be celebrating Jane Austen July, rereading favorite Jane Austen works and watching film adaptations and possibly reading other books and essays related to the great English novelist Jane Austen. I probably will not be joining them in reading any major works of Austen. Not because I don't like her, I do, but I've committed to so many other things, and I'm not like the some Austenites really love her stuff and find it sort of effortlessly pleasurable reading. It's not for me. It's I don't easily slip into gear with her when I'm reading. I have to kind of slow down and pay attention to really enjoy it personally. So if I'm going to read Austen, I need to take more time than I think I have for one of her works this month. But I did want to come on and participate by sharing with you um, a short review pertaining to Jane Austen, and it's by Virginia Woolf. This is not showing up very well. Virginia Woolf, and it's in this collection I have called Books and Portraits. It's probably in some other essay collections. It's a review called Jane Austen and the Geese, which, well, that's the title of the review, and it's of a book called Personal Aspects of Jane Austen by Mary Augusta Austen-Leigh from 1920. So Augusta Austen-Leigh was a grand niece of Jane Austen. So she had access to certain of Jane Austen's papers and things like that. And I don't think that Personal Aspects of Jane Austen was was the first biography of her, but it was the one being reviewed by Virginia Woolf here. She's not only reviewing this particular book, but she's sort of addressing some of the other critics, the geese of Jane Austen. So let me get right into it. After 2.5 minutes. Of all writers, Jane Austen is the one, so we should have thought, who has the least cause to complain of her critics. Her chief admirers have always been those who write novels themselves. From the time of Sir Walter Scott to the time of George Moore, she has been praised with unusual discrimination. So we should have thought. But Miss Austen-Leigh's book shows that we were far too sanguine. Never have we had before us such certain proof of the incorrigible stupidity of reviewers. Ever since Jane Austen became famous, they have been hissing inanities in chorus. She did not like dogs. She was not fond of children. She did not care for England. She was indifferent to public affairs. She had no book learning. She was irreligious. She was alternately cold and coarse. She knew no one outside her family circle. She derived her pessimistic view of family life from observing the differences between her father and mother. Imagine that. Miss Austen-Leigh, whose piety is natural, but whose concern we cannot help thinking excessive, is persuaded that there is some misapprehension, and that's in quotes, about Jane Austen, and is determined to right it by taking each of the geese separately and wringing his neck. Someone, properly anonymous, and we can scarcely help thinking fabulous, has expressed his opinion that Jane Austen was not qualified to write about the English gentry. The fact is, says Miss Austen-Leigh, that she was descended on her father's side from the Austens, who sprang, like other county families, from the powerful clan of the Clothiers. On her mother's from the Lees of Addlestrop, who entertained King Charles. Moreover, she went to dances, she moved in good society. Quote, Jane Austen was in every way well fitted to write of the lives and feelings of English gentle people. End quote. In that conclusion, we entirely concur. Still, the fact that you are well fitted to write about one set of people may be taken to prove that you are not well fitted to write about another. That profound observation is to the credit of a second anonymous fowl, another of these geese, right? Now, nor, to be candid, does Miss Austen-Leigh altogether succeed in silencing him. Jane Austen had, she assures us, opportunities for a wider knowledge of life than falls to the lot of most clergymen's daughters. An uncle by marriage lived in India and was a friend of Warren Hastings, whoever that is. He must have written home about the trial and the climate. A cousin married a French nobleman whose head was cut off in the Revolution. She must have had something to say about Paris and the guillotine. One of her brothers made the grand tour and two were in the Navy. It is therefore undeniable that Jane Austen might have, quote, indulged in romantic flights of fantasy with India or France for a background, end quote. But it is equally undeniable that Jane Austen never did. Yet it is difficult to deny that had she been not only Jane Austen, but Lord Byron and Captain Marryat into the bargain, her works might have possessed merit which, as it is, we cannot truthfully say we find in them. Okay, so that's the end of this paragraph, and I hope it's clear that there is more than a little bit of irony in that last bit. Leaving these exalted regions of literary criticism, the reviewers now attack her character. She was cold, they say, and, quote, turned away from whatever was sad, unpleasant, or painful, end quote. That is easily disposed of. The family archives contain proof that she nursed a cousin through measles and, quote, attended her brother Henry in London in an illness of which he nearly died, end quote. It is easy from the same source to dispose of the malevolent assertion that she was the illiterate daughter of an illiterate father. Very strange thing to say about Jane Austen. When the Reverend George Austen, that's her father, left Steventon, he sold 500 books. The number he must have kept is quite enough to prove that Jane Austen was a well-read woman. As for the slander that her family life was unhappy, it is sufficient to quote the words of a cousin who was in the habit of staying with the Austens. Quote, when among this liberal society, the simplicity, hospitality, and taste which commonly prevail in different families among the delightful valleys of Switzerland ever occurs to my memory, end quote. The malignant and persistent critic still remains who says that Jane Austen was without morality. Indeed, it is a difficult charge to meet. It is not enough to quote her own statement, quote, I am very fond of Sherlock's sermons, end quote. The testimony of Archbishop Whately does not convince us, nor can we possibly subscribe to Miss Austen-Leigh's opinion that in all her works, quote, one line of thought, one grace or quality or necessity is apparent. Its name is repentance, end quote. The truth appears to us to be much more complicated than that. And yes, repentance certainly does play a role, and in Jane Austen's novels, people are often, the story involves someone learning something about themselves and improving, right? So they're not. Repentance is a rather blunt way of putting it. Anyway, if Miss Austen-Leigh does not throw much light upon that problem, she does one thing for which we are grateful to her. She prints some notes made by Jane at the age of 12 or 13 upon the margin of Goldsmith's History of England. So apparently this biography includes marginalia that a young Jane Austen wrote in this History of England. Getting back to Virginia Woolf. They are slight and childish, useless, we should have thought, to confute the critics who hold that she was unemotional, unsentimental, and passionless. Quote, my dear Mr. G, I have lived long enough in the world to know that it is always so. She corrects her author amusingly. Oh, the wretches, she exclaims against the Puritans. Or, quote, dear Balmerino, I cannot express what I feel for you, end quote, she cries when Balmerino is executed. There is nothing more in them than that. Okay, so these are fairly juvenile, the marginalia. Only to hear Jane Austen saying nothing in her natural voice when the critics have been debating whether she was a lady, whether she told the truth, whether she could read, and whether she had personal experience of hunting a fox, is positively upsetting. We remember that Jane Austen wrote novels. It might be worthwhile for her critics to read them. Yes, so quite right, Virginia Woolf, and it might be well worthwhile for you to read some Jane Austen, even though I've just confessed that I am probably not going to read any Jane Austen this month. But anyway, that's Virginia Woolf's Jane Austen and the Geese. A pretty amusing little piece of work that I wanted to share for the occasion. Thanks for watching.